the time when it happened, they just branded her a prostitute and a druggie, and she were only 13.
Should be Ahmed. He was an Oldham Labour member, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, very in with the Labour Party. Although he did all his abuse in Rochdale, like I said, for 2 years, Oldham Council had him on the welfare section while he was under investigation for raping girls.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point I want to touch on more, actually. So he was, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, between 1988, and they say 2006, but I can only find evidence of him being fired in 2008. So between 1988 and 2008, he was employed by Oldham Council as what was it, a welfare rights officer?
Yeah, but I think he only did about 3-4 years around the Oldham Council time, but 2 of them years he was under investigation.
Yeah, so he was under investigation in 2005 with Greater Manchester Police failing to notify the council. Even though, and this is the problem, even when they were alerted, right? Oldham Council were alerted. They made no sufficient checks, no sufficient inquiries to see if he'd been working with vulnerable adults and children. And then we find out he's actually raped a kid, that a vulnerable child that he was working with while employed as a welfare rights officer and while under investigation.
Yeah, you couldn't make it up. That's the kind of silence there is within the Labour Party. And you know what? Some council members who are serving now would have known all about Shabir Ahmed, because he was well in the top league of like the Pakistani community. And they would have known, and they're still serving on the council. I'm not going to say who, but we could easily find this information out. But you know, that's what's happening. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Have you got any kind of horror stories of survivors that you're willing to share on camera without naming any names, that just kind of describe the horrifying experience?
Well, I mean, kidnapping, just picking these girls up and kidnapping them and them staying away for 2 days or whatever, and no one asking questions. And when we look into it, that happens a lot with the girls across all these kind of incidents. I have been told about torture, cigarette burning and stuff like that. But the main thing was drugs and alcohol. That was a really big main thing that was used on the girls, and that to get them compliance. But I mean, some of the horror stories are like to do with the police. When the review first came up 2 years ago, a girl contacted me and she had an interview with the police the next day. So she went to the interview, she come back crying on phone. In the interview, and from the time when it happened, they just branded her a prostitute and a druggie, and she were only 13.
She's only 13?
Only 13 at the time.
And this ties in then with Gordon Brown and Jackie Smith?
Yeah.
So what they circulated, saying that it's down to a lifestyle choice. Now, children do not choose to be prostitutes. You know, no child wakes up one morning and goes, you know what, I want to be a prostitute. You know, it just doesn't happen.
No.
But we're being told to think that it does. And, you know, you hear these horror stories in Rotherham and areas like that where these 13-year-old girls are meeting up and in a relationship with these 25, 30-year-old men. And the police are saying, well, unless the girl makes a complaint, we can't do anything. But I thought consent didn't start until you're at least 16.
Yeah, honestly. That's what it's like. But I mean, I've been to loads of court cases, and one of the court cases I went to, there was threats of killing someone. That's what some of the charges were in the court case. And this is a rape gang, this. Yeah. And they used to hold guns to girls' heads. This was in Huddersfield, this case in Huddersfield, well documented. Amjad Dittai was a policeman, a diversity policeman. He was up at the same time. Well-known case, and that happens across all these cases, wherever it is, whether it's Oldham, Rotherham, Telford. But we don't get to see that little bit of it. It's never reported hardly in the news. You'd have to go to the court case and listen to the court case if they let you in. So,
yeah, it is disturbing. And like, I asked someone a question recently about the inquiries, and you know, you read through the inquiries and you hear some of what these girls went through and what these men subjected them to, and then I asked, well, is it actually worth? And it said in the inquiry, and he was like, yeah, just read the court document. You know, there was an incident where a girl with an anal pump was used on a 13-year-old girl to widen it so as many men could go inside her ass as possible.
Yeah, and you don't want to see that on mainstream media. Like I said, you only see it in the court documents or the transcripts, and a lot of the times you're not even allowed in these cases. I've been up as a member of the public, and I should be allowed into any case, and I've been barred from going into these cases.
As a counter-argument to that, though, do you think that it would be easier with less... I know public needs to know what's going on, but with some of these girls who come in, they're 30, they may not be children when they're testifying, but it may be hard enough for them to testify without an entire gallery of public watching. What do you think?
It is, but they have television screens now. You don't need to do it directly. A lot of the girls do go up and do it directly, especially when they're women. But when they're young, you can't always guarantee that. But you can have a video screen up now. And I've been in court cases where they come over a video screen and said things, and they don't see who's in the court. They're just looking at camera, aren't they?
Yeah.
So we should do more stuff like that.
So I understand then, you've mentioned about alcohol. Now, I think that's a big one, that because gangs, these rape gangs, they use the same playbook in every town and city across the UK. God knows how they all think exactly the same. Bit weird that, isn't it? But they apply these skills with vodka and alcohol, get them drunk, and that's when they start sexually abusing them. And, because these girls are getting sexually abused, they're getting used by these men, they are getting, raped by these men, they are getting plied with alcohol, they're turning up past curfew, which is exactly how these grooming gangs were. They're then seen as troubled children. Yeah. So could you kind of go through some, I would like you to kind of explain that to the camera as well, but also if you know of any girls who have been deemed as not credible witnesses by the Crown Prosecution Service due to them misbehaving or...
Quite a few. I wouldn't say it's a majority of the girls, but I would say there's a fairly big percentage within them who are classed like that. There was an incident about 3 years ago in Ashton. This is near where Angela Rayner's offices are. And it was a big shop, and a lad went in filming it on Facebook, and they had two girls in the back room of the shop, giving them beer, and they were still in the school uniforms. And, we made a big thing about it, and a couple of the lads who went down to kick off at the shop, who got arrested and charged with crimes against, even though that happened in the shop. And I've been down Angela Rayner's office many a times and I've even been to the shop, and they just don't do nothing. But no, it is a big thing with the drugs and alcohol, and a lot of these shops have places next to them. In Oldham town centres, a lot of kebab houses have flats above them. There's little side streets you can just turn up in the car and get out into them. But it's awful, mate. It is.
Well, that brings us on to the next topic there, because I believe Shabir Ahmed used that exact tactic. He used the flats above a takeaway in Haywood. Yeah,
there were two of them highlighted in Haywood, but two of them, or three of the 9, worked or lived in Oldham. And one of them worked at a kebab house on Yorkshire Street there. And like I said, there's loads of little flats above these shops and all that. I'll take you to it and you'll see it yourself. And I believe, me and many others believe, that girls were took to them shops and abused.
We hope you enjoyed this latest video from Vox Populi. To watch the full video for free, please check out our website, voxpopulimedia.com. Thank you for your support.